Today we're in West Mineral, Kansas, talking to Carmen Boccia. And he's going to tell us some stories about interesting things that have happened during his time here. Carmen, good morning.
Good morning. Well, you've asked me to come up with some stories that I knew about Big Brutus. And one of the most interesting that stuck with me has very little to do with Brutus or very little to do with me, but it has to do with the son of a friend of mine. So I'll begin with that.
Oh, that'd be good.
So I got a call out one night that Brutus was out of power. And so I went to the mine and found out it was a 67 or 69,000 volt fuse that was blown, and this happened occasionally, but not too occasionally. So, it did happen though, and I replaced the fuse and got everything going again. Went back home. Well, the next morning I report for work, and my friend Bob Weiss, who was the plant electrician. I took care mainly of the Brutus and the pits, and where I was the pit electrician, and the plant was a preparation plant you see behind me. He was an electrician for that. So anyway, we compared notes and we overlapped occasionally. I would work in the power plant or in the preparation plant, and if we needed more help in the pit area, he would come to the pit area.
Now this picture of this plant, is that mine 15?
That's mine 19.
That's mine 19.
That is mine 19. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And that is a preparation plant where the coal was washed and sized and so forth.
Okay.
And he generally took care of that. Anyway, we reported, we had unusual occurrences that what had happened. So I said, last night I got a call out, and it was a 69,000 volt fuse had blown. I replaced the fuse and got everything going. He said, that's odd. He said, my son last night with some friends had went to a basketball game in Oswego, and they went to the park area after the basketball game at the bluff there, and said this craft came rising out of the riverbed, and scared the hell out of them, and they had some encounters with the craft and so forth, and one point, well, I'm probably getting ahead of myself because this Bob told me this story, and I paid attention to it, but not really.
And now, what year was this?
Well, this would have been 1967.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'd worked with Bob since 1955, and our families, we met together because we had growing families, And Bob come to work in 1955. I started with P&M in 1951, so I didn't know Bob before. And he had previously worked in Pittsburgh, and of course he lived in Oswego, so getting a job with P&M was real handy for him because we were at Hollowell, a few miles. Anyway, after that encounter with Bob, that was about it. I hadn't forgot about the incident over the years or whatever, but we'll fast forward now a long time, and I'm talking about 25, 30 years. And I can't recall ever meeting his son. Of course, I'd met his son, when our families got together and everything, and they were young, maybe 2, 3, 4 years old. And so late, 25 or 30 years later, there was an event at Brutus, and he happened to be there. This Rick Weiss was his name. This is Bob's son. At this time now, he's probably in his 40s. He's a superintendent of schools at some town, and I forget the name of the town. And so I thought, well, this be perfect. The first chance I had to ask him about that. I said, Rick, a long time ago, your dad told me, I said I had a power outage at Brutus, and I had changed the fuse, and everything was fine, and he told me about this encounter with the UFO. Well, the location between where the fuse was blown and the incident is maybe 10 miles, and it's all, when I look back, it's all along the 37th parallel. And the 37th parallel they call the UFO Super Express Highway. And then when I looked further, I mean, this is later on after the fact, UFO sightings along that parallel were, I think they reached a peak in 1967. So he proceeds to tell me about the story, and at that time I didn't know what, I said I didn't know what year it was or anything. He said, yeah, this happened. I mean, his face when I asked him, body language or facial expressions, he's not feeding me a line of crap, he's getting serious. And he proceeded to tell me about the occasion. He said, yeah, it was November of 1967. And they had went to a basketball game, and he must have been, I'm guessing, 14, 15, because he could drive. As far as I know, he drove the car. There was 2 others in the car with him. After the game, they went to the Oswego Park, and you're familiar with that.
Well, that's up north of Highway 96.
Yeah.
And it's in the park, and I believe there's a cemetery up that way, and,
Yeah.
and the bluff is there.
Yeah, and it overlooks the Neosho River, and, and the Oswego Dam is down below. And anyway, after the ball game, they had went to this park area, and they were either driving around the bluff or parked there talking about the basketball game. And all of a sudden, this craft comes rising silently out of the riverbed. And no sound. It had lights, I think either interior or exterior, the way I remember it, and scared the hell out of them.
Yeah, it would.
And they took off. And the way I remember it, he said whether they were so scared they didn't see any other cars on the street, or hear any dogs barking or anything, they were alone with this craft hovering over them somewhere or another. And at one point, he said it shot straight up in the air, disappeared. They thought, oh boy, we got rid of that guy, or whatever. And then I think they went back to the schoolyard and then came back, or the craft came back, said just like it was playing with them. That's the way I remember him telling me, just like it was playing with them or teasing them or something, scared the hell out of them again. Anyway, there was a few encounters, and I'm telling you, as I remember, it may not be quite, but that's really not the important point to me. The important thing is this craft, this 1967, what craft can you envision that in 1967 could rise out of a riverbed at night with lights on it, silent? And,
silent. That's spooky.
What the hell would it wouldn't be a helicopter?
No, it makes a lot of noise. A helicopter is very loud.
It wouldn't be a drone, even electric drones, because there probably wasn't any invented at that time.
And even they make noise.
It wouldn't be a hot air balloon, because you'd see the light, and then to go straight up in the air and disappear. Nothing had that capability that I'm aware of. Another thing is, what was its purpose to be there? I mean, was it sightseeing? Was it hunting catfish? I had some pretty big flathead catfishes in there. Maybe we're going to have a catfish mutilation. I don't know. So, maybe they needed water from the river. I have no idea, but it certainly must have had a purpose to be there, and I don't know what that purpose was. To me, it's not. When you look at the believability of the story, not about the chase or anything like that. What was this craft doing there, and what was its purpose there? And the kids happened to see it. And, now, as far as I know, he told me this story, and I asked him, why don't you? He said, why don't you tell somebody or make it public or something? He said, who in the hell is going to believe it? And I believe he told me that he had told some of the kids at school, and he's probably told friends this story. And went from there. So fast forward again about 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd met him at this friend's, did I mention that? At this friend's wake or memorial service.
Oh, okay.
At the park, And I hadn't told you about that. We had met at this memorial service at the park, and
the one in Oswego.
In Oswego, yeah,
the same park.
Community building. I think it's right there in the park area. And so he happened to be there. He was a mutual friend's son had died, and the memorial service was there. And he happened to be there. And I said, "This is the area where it happened." He said, "Yeah." And he starts pointing out to me different locations. This happened there, and that happened there, you know. And it was a short encounter. And I left, and he left, I guess. I asked him how his mother was. She was still alive. His dad was dead at the time, but and so forth. And so we left. About a week or two or three later, I go to the Eagle Lodge in Mineral, or Eagle Hall in Mineral, and I run into a friend that knew both of us, you know. And I said, "I got to see Rick Weiss the other day." They said, "Well, he died."
Oh, just not long after you had
No,
talked
not
to him?
long. I mean, you could get the time frame. You could, I mean, if it was important, you know, how much time it was, you could get when this memorial service was and the date he died. But it wasn't, to me, it wasn't very long, 2 or 3 weeks. And
Yeah, you just can't ever tell.
a lot of coincidences, you know. I mean, they're coincidences. But the main thing about the whole thing is, like I told you, what the hell would rise out of a river and what was its purpose there, you know? And
Have you ever had any insight into or idea about why the 37th parallel is such a hotbed of activity for viewing UFOs during this particular time, 1967?
yeah, I don't know. But they say it, and in fact, I think there's a book written by about the 37th parallel, you know, and we're, 37th parallel, I believe, is the southern border of Kansas. So Oswego and the location where the fuse was blown, they're about 10 miles apart. I didn't, real close, you know.
Yeah.
And so is it all coincidence? Did something happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a story that stuck in my mind, and totally believable to me.
But you think he may have told this story to other people?
Yeah, I do, and I hope if somebody else that sees this interview has had knowledge of this will contact you, and I hope you leave some method of contact where if they should happen to see it and would like to divulge information, you can go interview them, you know, and get their side of it. My side would be kind of unique because of the fuse blowing at Brutus, you know. And
Do you think there's a possibility? Well, there's no way to know, but you think that fuse blowing was a rare enough occurrence that the fact that it happened the same night as this sighting, that they may be connected?
You know, like I initially said when I met Bob, his father, that morning, that he said, "That's odd," you know, about seeing this craft the night before, you know, and at particularly, or practically, not particularly, but practically the same time or same time frame anyway, this fuse blows. So any connection? I
And
don't.
what was this fuse? Was this like a transformer or?
Well, the power line came from Empire District Electric Company on a steel tower line to the location of Brutus. And at the end of the power line, it came off of the power line, and there was a framework there that had the fuses. They were disconnect fuses, and a platform where you could change the fuses. It was kind of a hairy procedure to change it because we had to wear hot gloves and we stood on an insulated mat and had a hot stick. So it still give you heebie-jeebies, you know, kind
And
of.
the fuse itself was, how big was the fuse itself?
Probably 2.5, 3 feet long.
Was it one of those like round fuse,
Yeah,
like
round,
you would?
round, and it was glass or ceramic exterior, I believe. And of course, the fuse was inside, embedded probably in sand or something like that.
I see.
The size of the fuse, I don't remember, but I would estimate it be between 100 and 150 amps, something like that, because the transformer transformed down to 7,200, 69,000 to 7.2. And I think our load on Brutus was about 1,200 amps. So run that back, divide by 10, I guess, would be, put it maybe 150 amps. I don't remember the exact size of the fuse, but it was pretty good size. I mean, both amp-wise and physical size. So.
Well, I don't have a real broad distribution on this video. I put it on YouTube, and we'll see if somebody who sees it has some idea about maybe Rick Weiss having told them something about it.
Oh yeah, especially maybe his students. I'm sure, and I believe he told me that he had, he hadn't put it out publicly, but he had told students and probably friends about the story. So hopefully somebody will come forward. I'd like more information myself. And like I said, I have no reason to disbelieve him. He's telling me what he thought was.
Well, that's what I find part of what I find interesting about this story is that in your contact with him and with the story, you didn't find any sort of BS about it. There was no sort of they were serious.
No doubt in my mind. He was dead serious. What he saw, I don't know, but he
believed it.
He believed it. He saw something, and he wasn't alone. There was two others with him. I didn't know any of the other two. I never talked to them, but I have no reason to this day to disbelieve what he told me.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carmen. I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Hopefully somebody will show up with the story that Rick had told them about the similar event, and maybe it'll get around enough that...
Well, I leave the comments on my YouTube video so people can comment on it. And
I'm sure there's friends or associates or whatever, or people he's worked with, something that has been told the story to, and they would come at it from a different perspective than I come at it, because I tie in the fuse blowing with the, because you always, or you not always, but you generally hear about electrical disturbances wherever these craft are involved, so.
Well, on YouTube, my channel name is EasyD, and that's the handle I use on YouTube is EasyD, and I'm on Facebook at David R. Wallace.
Okay.
And they can feel free to DM me on Facebook and share whatever they'd like to about this.
Okay, hopefully they'll keep you busy, because I'd be interested to know more too. So
any reply at all would be wonderful for me. I don't know what we're going to get, but we'll take what we can get. Thank you, Carmen.
Okay, and thank you.